Hello and welcome back to the movie graveyard. Just a little bit of an editor's note here tonight. A few of you might remember a couple months ago we made the big transition from the 1980s movie graveyard, which was only covering finest films of the 1980s, to becoming the movie graveyard, opening up the span a little bit. And we promised we would have some more movies coming from some more decades, most likely the 90s. And, tonight we have our first 90s show. And before we get into it here, I just want to give you a little bit of a background. Why did we make this change? We were very popular as the 1980s movie graveyard. Why would we change it? Basically, it was always my intention to start a 90s companion show. I wanted to keep them separate, 80s and 90s shows, because I realized they're both niche audiences. Yeah, there's some crossover, but some people want to keep it only 80s or only 90s. But long story short, I was kind of forced. Not that it's really cost that much money to do this podcast, because we used to host on a free server called TalkShoe. Well, unfortunately, TalkShoe had a lot of technical problems in 2017. They weren't reliably hosting our episodes anymore. Some were going missing. We were having major problems with TalkShoe. So while I was figuring out what our options could be for our podcast, I figured out the best thing I could do is move us over to actual paid hosting service, which is Podbean, is what we're using. And Podbean's been great and awesome, but unfortunately, you only get one feed on there. So in order for me to host the 90s show separate on there, it would have been literally, basically a whole nother account, a whole nother charge per month. So that's why we melded the 80s and 90s together here and just became just the movie graveyard. In this upcoming episode you're about to hear right now, there will be, I think we started the show and we call it, originally the 90s show was going to be called the 1990s movie multiplex. So you will hear us, reference that show name. Obviously, that show will not be coming to fruition now. It's just all kind of melded here into the movie graveyard. So thanks a lot for your patience. Thanks a lot for all your loyal listenership. And we hope you enjoy the show still, even with a little bit of 90s mixed in. So without further ado, here's the show.
You're listening to the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network. Yeah, it's a mouthful. For more great shows like the one you're about to enjoy, visit electronicmediacollective.com. And now, our feature presentation.
Hello, 90s movies fans, and welcome back to the 1990s movie megaplex. We are happy to be joined with something spooky, something kooky, something ooky today. We are happy to be celebrating a movie that 20 years now has not gotten its proper due. But I'm very happy to say I'm being joined today by one of my longtime podcasting associates. We're talking with Jelli from the Second Round Podcast. Jelli, how you doing tonight?
I'm excellent. How's it going? I'm glad to be a part-time ticket taker here at the Megaplex.
That's right, taking the ticket. It was your first night. I let you off easy. I let you tear the tickets here. This beautiful, 1992 era film theater. We were able to, kind of spruce up and get on the cheap, get a couple tax breaks here, and we're here showing the, the classics of the whole decade of the 1990s. And
I do miss those 90s movie theaters where like 8 screens was considered a lot, and you'd go in and you would not hear the other movie playing in the theater right next to you. Exactly. I was just at Logan, and I don't know for sure if it was John Wick next door, but I mean, Logan's, it's got its action beats for sure, but it's also got its quiet, pensive moments. And I'm sitting there hearing in the theater next door while I'm trying to watch this movie be serious.
Oh, I know exactly the feeling. About a month or so ago, I went to see Hidden Figures, and I'm really trying to, get into the era, and the classic soundtrack and feel the mood. And like nonstop, I just have like fucking Xander Cage's Triple X explosions going off in my ear. It was beyond annoying. But yeah, like I know what you mean, man. It's not the same. I don't know if you ever heard of this website, Jelli, but I really recommend it. It's called cinematreasures.org. And basically, it's just like a big website where people upload information about their favorite movie theaters, and if they have photos, upload photos. And yeah, like I was looking at a theater that no longer exists anymore, but the one I used to go to in Florence, Kentucky. It was an 8-screener, and the total of all the theater, all the houses in there combined on those 8 screens, they had about 4,500 seats for this multiplex. Now, contrast that to where I live now, we have a horrible Cracker Jack stadium style, whatever, 14-plex. And I added up, because they actually have the numbers on the doors, I added up, there's like less than 2,000 seats in the current 14-plex. So, literally, the theaters that I grew up going to, were generally twice as big as the ones, in terms of seating and whatnot. And just, I don't know. It's just crazy to me.
You need to get to watch an actual film print.
Exactly. So, is it crazy? But we'll go ahead and get the movie rolling here. Yeah, Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight. We'll get into it, and we'll talk about our history with this film. And I have a long history of this film, one of my favorites for sure. But we're going to go ahead and get started. I know there's different releases of this, DVDs, Blu-rays, whatnot. I have the Blu-ray on the 1 second mark. It's going to be a little bit off, a little different timing if you have the DVD, because there's various logos. But we're talking, it's paused on like the very beginning of the Universal logo, which is, it starts out, it's basically blackness and then a globe and like some light starts to come up. So we're right there at the very beginning of this 1995 era Universal logo. So I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, go. And when I say go, hit play on your remotes, your portable DVD players, or whatever you have, your streaming devices, whatnot. So are you ready for the countdown, Jelly?
I'm ready.
All right. Come on, everybody, grab your remotes. 1, 2, 3, go. All right. See that Universal logo flying around? Was I right, Jelly? Is that obvious CGI? Or what? Like, I'm waiting for the globe because, like I said, it looks like an egg. I'm waiting for it to crack open and Howard the Duck to jump out.
They tried too hard to make it look like the Earth instead of just a round.
Exactly. Like, if you look at the one from, like, the 1940s or whatever, where it's, like, black and white, and it's actually, they had no concept of a space shuttle back then, so they had an airplane fly around the globe. You ever see that one?
That's my favorite one.
Yeah. Well, that, like, 1932 model looks more real than that stupid CGI puffy balloon we just looked at.
Ugh.
Now here we have the beginning of the movie is actually the beginning of the opening of the Tales from the Crypt TV show. They just literally used the exact same footage, didn't even recreate it or whatnot. And
I think that's a smart choice. Ultimately, yeah. If you're gonna pander to the fans in your Tales from the Crypt movie, do it in your bookend segments. And that, I think it's a smart choice. And yeah, this opening's great. This is like one of the most iconic things that entertainment has ever given us.
Well, I mean, definitely you got to mention the score too. Yeah, I mean, it's great.
Danny Elfman, back when Danny Elfman actually composed stuff instead of just
reusing shit. But yeah, watching this on the Blu-ray, you can tell a little bit more with it because it has a bit more clarity than the DVD has. But I'm sure even on the DVD, or maybe it's just me, on all honesty, looking at it closer now. But you can actually tell the parts that are a camera moving through a set and the parts that are a camera moving through a model, and it's actually blended seamlessly. Like as the doors open, like and it transitions from the live, stages to like the little model areas and stuff. It's pretty cool.
And you could tell like the cuts, the where they are basically blue screening stuff to make it look like a continuous shot, but at least it looks like it, and it's cool.
Considering they filmed that in what, probably like 91, 92, it's pretty damn good. Now here we have, it's just like the opening of a Tales from the Crypt episode, which we're on HBO, is always, very R-rated territory. We get a slutty young woman now who is in her bra and some blood and obviously on the phone with her lover. That was a big theme, I think, of the Tales from the Crypt episodes, at least a lot of the ones that I saw, was that there was always if there was ever like a guy who had a lot of money and like kind of got the trophy wife or whatever, she would always kill him, right?
That's a great line that she has, right? It makes me hot and squishy. Just that lets you know the kind of like sleazy territory that you're in.
Oh, very
right
sleazy.
off the get-go. And then Tales from the Crypt, EC Comics stuff was always in that territory. And it's great.
And it's great too that they took it to, the show's creators, and obviously with the couple movies they made, took it to that R-rated level. I mean, obviously this woman could not wait to show off her breasts in this bathtub here. And then of course here comes her husband, who was dissolving in the whatever acid bath down in the basement. Of course he's a zombie. Always them gooey-eyed, half-rotten, usually wet, waterlogged zombies from the EC Comics would come out.
Yeah, it's John Larroquette.
Yeah. All of a sudden the Crypt Keeper calls cut, and we pull back and we see that it's John Larroquette's actually playing this ghoul here. And I don't know about you, Jelly, but I was kind of startled when the Crypt Keeper jumped out of his chair. He's kind of wobbly looking here, wouldn't you say? Yeah. Basically, Billy Barty's protege, probably. They had run across the screen with a green helmet on. And they CGI'd in the puppet's the head. I that looks like what the effect was to me, but
it's not the best.
No.
But then we're back to, more typical
puppet
Crypt Keeper stuff here, and
yeah,
it looks great. I mean, this is a great puppet, a great animatronic.
Oh, it's yeah, and the voice and everything. And, I honestly was never like that huge into the Crypt Keeper himself. I just liked the way his look was. But he had a lot of puns there. Like he told John Larroquette that he's no Robert Redford. What do you what do you think about his horrible puns that he has?
Or Scary Coleman?
Yeah, you're no Scary Coleman. Well, who is Scary Coleman? I mean, it's very rare talent there.
Yeah, it's that fine line, right? Of so bad it's good.
Yeah.
And I think it's very self-aware in that, that's a really hard kind of humor to nail. But I do think they nail it, and there's moments of that in this movie itself too, where they go with it's so not funny that it's funny type stuff, and it works. It's one of the hardest types of humor to nail, but and humor is so subjective, but I think when you get it right, it's really good.
Yeah, and I have to say, I always love the Crypt Keeper when he introduces the actual thing, because then he goes from laughing maniacally to then he's always like, and now the tale of the demon night. I always like his little scary intro for the titles.
Yeah, it's that perfect kind of scary, especially for where I was when this movie came out. I mean, I didn't see it in theaters because I was 13.
Yeah.
But I rented it on DVD, or it would have been VHS actually back in those days. But I rented it for a friend of mine, and I would always rent a horror movie whenever we had a sleepover, and it's that perfect you get scared from it when you're 14, 15 years old.
Oh yeah, I mean, and to be fair, even though this is a Tales from the Crypt thing, compared to other horror movies, even from that time period, it keeps the intensity up pretty good. And also, I think too, I mean, when you're a kid, I think a lot of the movies that at least scared me when I was younger were a lot of the ones that really had creative, kind of scary imagery, and this movie has that a lot, I think.
Yeah, and especially at the start here, if you've never seen this movie, at the start, you really aren't 100% sure who the good guy and who the bad guy are.
Yeah, I definitely think in a good way they took a page from the Terminator, for sure.
Yeah, you just see two a scraggly kind of looking guy and a more kind of typically handsome looking guy or whatever, just chasing each other.
Yeah, and I mean, they don't outright say it, but the way Billy Zane is dressed, he's kind of almost like a Walker Texas Ranger type, he looks like. So, I always kind of got the impression when I first saw this that he was, one of them shit-kicking, hillbilly Texas Ranger type of guys, And then, obviously, you have the very skeevy... And this opening scene was the debut to the world of the rock band Filter with their Hey Man, Nice Shot song. And they actually did, if you're a fan of that song, and I think everybody's heard it a million times because it was in a million different movies, TV shows, and then eventually trailers in the 90s, they actually because the song kind of, there's like a halfway point where it kind of quiets down in the middle of the song. Well, for some reason they actually used the end of the song in the first part, and then like there's a bit of break when the cars blow up, and then the song like restarts, and then it's actually the beginning. Like what you hear is the end of the song in the movie is actually really kind of the beginning part of the song.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Back on Billy Zane, is I know he's credited only as the collector, and in a different version of the script, when they thought their budget was going to be only like $5 million or something, he was going to be a door-to-door Bible salesman was kind of going to be his character, and all the demons that he summons were also going to be like door-to-door Bible salesmen that were only going to be revealed as demons, like, I don't know, halfway through or towards the end of the movie or something, because they weren't sure they were going to get the money to be able to do demon costumes. And then as production was getting ready to start, Universal said, we can't do a movie called Demon Knight and not have demons.
Yeah.
So they kicked him a few million more. They bumped it up to at least a like $10 to $12 million budget, and we got the movie. This was a script. This was the script they wanted to do, but they had kind of rewritten it for a lower budget in case they had not made it to the budget, because there were some budgetary concerns.
Yeah, there was like a few different versions I know. And then once it was deemed it was going to be a Tales movie, there was kind of like even some more revising to make it kind of appeal to, the Tales Crypt, from the Crypt type audience, and, kind of beefing up the monsters and whatnot. Which, I mean, I think that's...
This was originally going to be Tom Holland's follow-up to Child's Play.
Right.
That was his original plan for it. And Tom Holland's made some really good movies in his day, so...
He has.
You can definitely see some of his fingerprints on this, just in terms of, or at least just maybe why this would appeal to Tales from the Crypt is it's got the blend of humor and stuff and horror, and the humorous thing that is the horror. It works. Yeah,
I mean, and honestly too, it's like, I don't know, like the premise of this film has always impressed me. We'll get into it a little bit, it kind of as it unravels, but for this being kind of like a real legit B grade, this movie came out in January. I remember it came out like in the middle of like my senior year of high school, and like, I mean, obviously, like, it was the type of movie I was like all geeked up about, but this was not like, it's not like now when, there's like a horror movie and everybody's a buzz about it and stuff. Like nobody was talking about this movie, and that was a time when there was like no such thing as really a hit movie in January, if you know what I mean.
No, this was definitely what they call it. Fuck you, it's January territory. Like,
exactly.
The January, in the 90s especially, was just a dumping ground.
And I mean, like, there is, Joel Silver was like one of the main producers behind this, as he was involved with Tales of the Crypt. And I mean, that even kind of shows on the producer and studios end that they really had no faith. It was just like, let's just dump this out at a time. I'm not saying that they, were completely given up on it, but it was more like, let's just dump this. This is probably going to be a weak financially be a weak movie for us. Let's just dump it at a time where there's really not much competition at all. You know what I mean?
And isn't that, excuse me, isn't that just such a sign of how much times have changed? Like, if your hit HBO show, your Game of Thrones or whatever was releasing a movie in theaters these days, it would be counted on to be at least probably like $400 or $500 million type of box office returns. And this movie, I think they were probably pretty happy coming up to, like, I think they roughly broke even, like, in terms of after all your marketing budget and all that stuff, they probably like basically broke even, and then probably made money on home video and stuff, because this is back when people actually rented videos.
Exactly. And when you could, most movies, You know, unless it was something big like Batman or something. Most movies like this, I'm sure, was probably one of those ones that probably cost $60 to $70, and rental places probably bought it and then probably rented the shit out of it. You know what I mean? Cause
Yeah.
like back in the VHS rental store days, shit, man. Like horror was like, you know, as a kid, you troll that horror section. And sometimes there's like a movie that's like 10 years old, but it's like always rented out, and you almost have to wait for it to come back. I remember that happening a lot.
Yeah.
Whereas, isn't it so weird the age we live in now, where people are like, "Oh, that movie's, oh yeah, that's 3.5 months old." Yeah, no, it's ancient. Forget it. Yeah. But yeah,
definitely was a different, you know, like, I know you like, yeah, people weren't really buzzing about this, but you could find people a year or 2 years after it that would be talking about it, especially like in our age group of you know, people who would go and rent horror movies and stuff like that, and yeah, that doesn't happen anymore.
No, yeah, and it's kind of unique too, because like, I mean, I guess maybe a little bit, but like this to me didn't strike me as the type of horror movie you take a girl to so she grabs your arm. This seems more like you go to the movie theater and you sit down and you look around and it's just nothing but guys. Like, probably, you know, older high school, college age guys, you know what I mean? And like there's a time when the movie industry like really focused on that kind of that demographic. And
well, the trailers for this movie, it's kind of funny. The trailers say I appreciate the blatant honesty of the trailers. It goes, the trailers were all done by the Crypt Keeper going, "Oh, here's my first movie's going to be coming, blah, blah, blah." And at the end, he would go, "And ladies, if this is too icky for you, good."
Yeah. Yeah, everything was all about like a eyeball shooting out and some gross like green zombie vomit and shit. Like it was that era of just like goofy shit like that. But yeah,
meeting all our characters.
Yeah,
and at this point, we've met already like almost all the characters in the movie. This is efficient storytelling.
It's very efficient because we kind of talked through a part where Sadler, he tried to steal a car outside a diner. And it's always like in these movies, it's like the halfway house diner or whatever. I wonder if that's a real chain or a real thing, like, or if it's just like a fake movie world type thing that somebody came up with. But yeah, like we kind of got a glimpse of like the diner owner and his kid and his wife, and like talk about efficient, like they just kind of run out, "Hey, this guy's trying to steal our car," and they scare him off or whatever. Like we see these characters like they have like one line or something, and then they come back later as demons, and we're supposed to be like, "Oh, that was them people." And it's very blink if you missed it character introduction. But of course, Dick Miller runs into Sadler and brings him back to the boarding house that they live in. Which in the story, I believe it's supposed to be an old church, right? Converted.
Yeah. It says it used to be a church. It was decommissioned in the 50s.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting, too, checking out some of the behind-the-scenes type shit. This house or this church, whatever, is actually not anything at all. It's actually a soundstage. And to the director's wishes, they actually built a soundstage in an airplane hangar in the Van Nuys Airport in the Valley in Los Angeles, because I guess he was afraid that because the whole movie takes place at night, it would be really hard to shoot like all at night all the time, you know. So it's just like, let's just go to a thing where it's like all the windows are just blacked out from the outside type deal, so we don't have to worry, and then we can work normal hours, and you know, which really like it's kind of genius when you think about it, because that really frees up, you know, the time in terms of like you could probably have all the effects guys working all night to get the shit ready, and then you just shoot it all day long. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, talk about something that doesn't happen anymore.
Exactly.
Building a whole house on a set.
Yeah, and even some of the outside too, like where you kind of see the cars are out the front door. Pretty inventive. And yeah, let's talk about some of the actors we have in this, because this is actually a pretty damn good cast. Because, like we said, you have William Sadler, obviously Billy Zane, we know is the bad guy, but then we have veteran character actor Dick Miller playing Uncle Willie, the old drunk of the boarding house. You have CCH Pounder. She plays like the lady who runs it. I'm not sure if she's the owner, but she definitely runs it. Then
Thomas, it just walked into the movie. Thomas Hayden Church as Roach.
Yeah, we saw him earlier at the diner. He's like the dishwasher. Like in 1995, in a movie, they're passing off that somebody's occupation is dishwasher. But yeah, he actually has one of my favorite lines because he's coming to sleep with Cordelia, who's the prostitute of the hotel. But he actually has one of my favorite lines, and this movie has a lot of quirky lines from either him or Billy Zane. But I love it when he walks in and he goes, "Hello, motel people." Like a trashy guy named Roach who washes dishes at a dirty ass diner. He's looking down on someone. Then we have Charles Fleischer, who a lot of people will probably a lot of horror fans will know him for his like 2-second doctor cameo from the original Nightmare on Elm Street, but he's more of a guy you don't see on screen a lot because he does voices, and he is the voice of Roger Rabbit, as we all know.
He plays such his character. I think the first time I saw this movie, I didn't pick up. And again, it's all that efficient storytelling. In this 90-minute movie, you gotta burn your way through who your characters are. I didn't pick up the first time I saw it that he was a postman.
Yeah, who's been fired. And I tell you what, it was just kind of recently that I noticed his shirt that he wears. It's like his postal shirt, and just the name tag has been ripped off because they have kind of like the dirt, like outline of where his name tag used to be.
Yeah.
Or not it wouldn't be his name tag. It would be the USPS logo.
And that's a line that he has. He's saying earlier in the movie. He goes, I don't know. He says something. And he goes, "You never believe what happened. He walked up and ripped my postal service tag right off of me," or something like that. Yeah.
And basically, he claims he was fired because there was a bunch of missing mail, which gets paid off real late in the film.
Yeah,
like long
paid
after
off
at a weird time for no reason, kind of. But so here we have Breaker when the cops show up with Billy Zane. Obviously, Billy Zane he never flat out lies to the cops that he's somebody, but he acts like he's somebody of authority. The way he kind of starts barking orders and kind of just BSing his way. So they take his word and they go after him looking for Stryker at this motel. And Stryker grabs Geraldine. I always screw up because I always want to call her Geraldine, but her name's Geraldine in the movie.
Geraldine.
Yeah, Jada Pinkett, not Smith at this point, just Jada Pinkett. And I really like Jada Pinkett, and I think it has to do with this movie.
I don't mind her. I mean, she's fine, and she's good in this. I like this movie.
Yeah, she's great in this. But the cops we have, I'm blanking on his name here. The guy who plays the sheriff, but he's been in a ton of shit.
John Shuck.
Yeah, that's right, John Shuck. Was John Shuck the guy? I swear, unless I'm mistaken, I think he might have played Herman Munster in that weird 90s or 80s revival of the Munsters.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, but with him is awesome Native American actor Gary Farmer.
I know John Shuck would often play a Klingon.
Really?
On Star Trek. Now I'm on it. Yep, it says in the 1980s he starred as Herman Munster in The Munsters Today.
Yeah. I watched that as a kid because I when I was really super young, they still played like a lot of syndicated channels where they played the regular, the real Munsters. So when that, whatever, even though it was kind of an awful show, like I still watched that redo that they did in the 80s. So already, like, whatever we are at the 22-minute mark, and we kind of, I think we're introduced to every single character already that we'll see. Oh, yeah. And there was a little boy who saw Stryker at the diner, about to steal the car. He comes into play later on, but these are kind of like the main characters. Gary Farmer bursts in on Thomas Hayden Church having his nipples
after he gets a good long look.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what would you say? That was like a good 12 to 15 second gander at what was going on. Yeah. Basically, the Cordelia was riding Thomas Hayden Church while she had a car battery hooked up to his nipples. So, yeah.
I like that line that he has to. My nipples are smoking.
Yeah, you can tell. There's I tell you what, I really like the first Blade movie, but I kind of wonder what it would have been because Ernest Dickerson, who directed this movie, I know for a long time was kind of one of the original people trying to get a Blade movie off the ground. Long before the Wesley Snipes version happened. So it would have been kind of interesting if he would have got something off the ground earlier in the earlier 90s.
Yeah, that would have been. He didn't do a whole lot of movies.
No,
but he did do a lot of TV.
Yeah, I think he did a lot of videos and a lot of TV. He had a couple little movie things. This is kind of being his most major movie. And then
I think so. Unless you count Bulletproof with Damon Wayans and Adam Sandler.
Yeah, that's kind of... I don't know, it seemed like Ernest Dickerson kind of had his run with Universal, B movies, and then that was it, yeah. Bulletproof is actually okay. It's actually... I haven't seen it in a long time, but it's one of the... I don't know, it's one of the Adam Sandler movies that I
haven't seen
tolerate.
It in so long, I couldn't tell you if I, liked it anymore, but...
I caught it on cable a couple years ago.
And so here we're getting our first glimpse at the key.
Yeah.
And this was originally going to be when they had planned a whole trilogy of Tales from the Crypt movies. The key was going to be sort of a somewhat central figure, or at least appearing in all of them. And I think it actually does appear briefly in Bordello of Blood. But yeah, this was supposed to be their through line for all the movies was this key. And it's a cool, it's a cool little prop, a cool little design.
Yeah, and unless I misunderstood it, the way they explain it with the key, it was created or whatever when, demons were ruling the earth, but I think there might have been multiple keys as well.
I think is it 7 or 9? One of those two.
It's 8 or... Yeah, it's 7, 8, or 9, and then, the thing
They've got all but one.
Yeah, this is the last one type deal. And that's why, And here we finally, at whatever we are, the 25-minute mark, now we finally know for sure, because, the cops are arresting Breaker and all this. Now we know for sure who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. And, I don't know. I think that was very intentional. I can't think of any other movie of that time period that did that, like the Terminator did it,
Yeah.
Even T2 kind of throws you for a loop, because you think Arnold's the bad guy and Robert Patrick is the human, because he's a little wimpy guy at first. And then,
that's such a great floating head prop or flying head prop, and just, it's such a cool start to the movie. Or start to the action, just throw right into it. Yeah,
for people not familiar, maybe they haven't seen it in a while, Billy Zane punches through the sheriff's head, then gets the head stuck on his hand, and then throws it across the room and hits somebody with it.
And now Billy Zane is just... He was this quiet, cool for the first half hour of the movie, and now he's just... You hold up, well then, motherfuckers!
Yeah, that's great, because he gets burned with the key, so he literally flies through a window, and he goes outside, and he's like, fuck this hillbilly shit, he rips the coat off. And then he starts going into this almost Jim Carrey-esque diatribe about humans and all you podunk motherfuckers and all this. And then he creates the demon horde here, and I have to say,
spraying his predator blood everywhere.
Yeah, pure predator blood. I think Bill Sadler has a key full of Jesus' blood. Billy Zane has a key full of predator blood. But yeah, he drips his predator blood into the sand here, which creates some kind of reverse melting little embryonic type figures who eventually grow up into some... Oh, in their little state here, they almost remind me of some Pumpkinhead type figures, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. This is a great little moment here where he kisses the one.
Yeah, I know. As I was saying, there's some great improvisation. I mean, Ernest Dickerson, this movie looks great, the action's great, but I think he's a good director because he really, kind of lets the actors run free with what they're doing and everything.
And Billy Zane runs with this.
Yeah.
He really does. He's what'll keep you coming back to this movie. He's got just some great moments. And we've already seen a couple of them, but yeah. So these are the demons that the 90s demons with their piercings and
their goatees, their ponytails, and they are scary. They got some real skinny performers and put them on stilt legs and whatnot. I mean, that's what sold me on this movie, made me an instant fan of this movie.
Yeah, they do have the good hoof legs and everything. That's really.
And you don't see them that often from the back, but the few times kind of later in the movie you do see them, they actually have tails that are kind of articulated and go around a little bit. It's
that like attention to detail even when no one's going to see it anyways type of stuff.
And I'm sure probably on every episode of this podcast I'll do it at some point, but I just have to point out the fact that you would not get the feeling that you get from seeing these demons if this was a modern movie and they're all CGI creatures. Like,
no, there'd be this is definitely one of those where like they would be CG and it would be worse for it. I mean, there's obviously some stuff that it's great for. It's great for something that's not human in shape or form or function at all, and just kind of exists as this is kind of hard to define type of thing. But like, these are just demons. These are just dudes. Like you don't need more than good makeup and some good masks and just go with it.
And and I feel like I've been here. We kind of have the demon siege here, and Breaker kind of shows that they can be killed by either stabbing or shooting their eyes out. But I feel like also too, for as much as we kind of been evangelizing the use of mocap, and like mocap is amazing. I mean, like I think probably the best mocap I've ever seen is really when they do it with apes, whether it be for Peter Jackson's King Kong or the recent string of Planet of the Apes films. But as much as you can get with motion capture, like also sometimes there's something to be said. It's all about performance, and motion capture is about capturing a performance, but you can also sometimes capture performance with such somebody under prosthetics in a full body suit as well. You know what I mean? Just depends on what you're trying to kind of bring to life.
I think it makes you act more in your actions, your body actions.
Yeah. Sometimes. Because, I mean, even though, these demons, they don't talk, they kind of snarl and bite and stuff, and some of them, they have lips that snarl up, and of course, they can blink and stuff, but, like, their facial movements are limited somewhat, but I don't know, in a way, that kind of makes them scary, too.
Yeah. Like this, where it's just... It works to its benefit that it's just getting shot and not very moving, not moving very much.
And I think sometimes too, and even movies that have the CGI, I feel like they kind of get so enamored with what they can do. Whereas I feel like when you're kind of shooting around sometimes a physical thing that, a few seconds can fool you, but a full minute and a half scene can't. So, like, I kind of miss how, like, things were shown sparingly back in the days when everything was practical and, not quite as, whatever. I mean, I won't even go as far as to call CGI convincing or lifelike, because sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But, I don't know, like, I think that less or more approach works in a lot of movies, and I don't see...
Don't show the shark.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, it works. So here, Breaker is sealing up all the entryways with this blood.
That's what the key of blood is for. It can create the blood inside can create a seal to keep the demons out. And there was one demon try to jump through, and it's kind of cool because not so much as when it jumped through the barrier, it didn't so much explode as it kind of got turned inside out. It was kind of interesting.
I like the barrier's cool. Even Billy Zane can't really go through it, and Yeah, there's a rule that doesn't really make sense. Freeze their tortured souls, because like they're demons that he called up with his blood. Like not necessarily, they're not like possessed people or anything. But I mean, whatever. They thought of a reason for it that it works. And
yeah, when you kill them, you get like their eyeballs shoot out, like pretty much like best I can describe is green lightning bolts. And you don't want to be in the way of it because it can fuck you up if you get hit with the lightning bolts. But yeah, let's talk about.
I like this character, this Breaker character too. This is I guess you could say he's a bit of a trope in that like it's certainly become something that's a little more popular now, of the guy who's fighting on the side of right and the side of God, but is a bit of an asshole too, like
right.
Because he's clearly like a warrior of God, right? Like he's fighting against demons. He's got a key full of at least some of Christ's blood. You end up finding out later that most of what's in there has to be refilled. But like he's a holy crusader. He's a holy warrior, but he's like a complete dick too.
Yeah, it's one of those great kind of crusty, reluctant heroes, you know. But I don't know. Like you said, it is a trope. But I mean, it really works in this story. I think even more than others, because we see it's something that gets passed down over the years. So it's not like these people are, you know, choosing this. Really, they usually get stuck in these horrible situations where the responsibility is kind of forced on them, and then they have to kind of come to grips with like, hey, either I do this or mankind is pretty much going to end, you know, and we're going to live in this demon world.
The lighting in this movie, like while he's going around sealing up the windows, and they get the red glow, and then the lighting of that cross flickering, that's really good lighting in this movie.
Yeah, and like I know on the other show, the 1980s movie Graveyard, I would bitch a lot about this, but I just have to bring it up because this movie is such a strong example of this. I think there's kind of one of the cases to still shoot some movies on film where it makes sense or the budget allows for it is, I don't know, film to me, I don't know if you'll agree with this or not, Jelly, but film to me, it requires a lot more careful lighting. And it seems to pick up, like, stylized lighting a lot better than the digital world does. Like, I don't know. I haven't seen too many digitally shot movies that really capture this kind of stylized lighting scheme. Like, usually when you see it in a digitally shot movie, it just looks like, you know, if they want to put red into a scene, it just looks like the actor has to literally step in front of a red spotlight. Whereas, like, you get more little beams of light and tinges of different colors here and there on some of these, you know, more classically shot 80s, 90s, even early 2000s horror films.
I think it's a combination of, like, digital not picking up light the same way.
Yeah, because it works completely different.
And, you know, directors relying more on, we can color correct this after, and, you know, we get CG and some lighting if we need to, and so, you know, like stuff like that you couldn't do. And I know that it's not all that, because, you know, you see some filmmakers who are, like, you know, still around, that from the film days, that grew up making movies on film and now are trying to do digital. Like, their movies don't look good anymore because they haven't adapted their cinematography to, like, David Cronenberg's a great example. Whatever you think of the quality of the movies themselves, his movies that have been done on digital look like they've been done on video. They're really not good looking movies, and for a guy whose earlier works look fantastic.
Oh, they look painstakingly detailed, you know.
And so there is something to be said about just they pick up light differently, but I also think there's a filmmaker attitude difference too these days. Of we just correct that.
Yeah, and I mean probably some of that has to do with probably shrinking budgets as well, because it takes a long time to light a film set. I know.
Like you said, now I'm like looking at it even more, like the beams of light coming through, like you know, the beam of the flashlight, like with the dust in the air and stuff. Yeah, it's almost hard to believe, like you said, that this is a set, because you wouldn't think a set would have as much dust and stuff and particulate to make beams of light like that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, even like this scene with just these two guys talking, and it cuts from angle to angle, and each angle kind of, you know, you can kind of see where the light's coming from and how it's hitting them and stuff, and kind of what it does for the mood of the scene and the atmosphere. Yeah, like that's one thing I really miss. I mean, you know, I don't know, like I find it really strange. Like, I mean, I love, you know, and also it has to do with my age and how many films I've watched and how many films I watched in a theater and whatnot. But like, I just will always prefer the grainy shot on film look to the clean digital look. But there's sometimes I do appreciate a cleanly shot digital film, especially on my newest TV. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like as far as, you know, I think I think digital is a better format if people are going to be watching your stuff on like a 4K TV, and I think film is a much better format if you're going to be watching it in a big theater on a projector, because you can have digital projection, but if you run a film print, like, and I'm sure you see this, Jelly, because I know you have a projector and I got one not too long ago too, and like, I watch those grainy old Blu-rays on my digital projector, and I don't know, I get fooled that I'm watching almost a film projector sometimes. Yeah. It's funny, but yeah. So I don't know, and the reason I bring it up is just because I think out of all the genres, maybe horror is kind of the one that's, I don't know, kind of felt the sting a little bit more from everything going digital.
Well, because digital blood is the worst.
Oh yeah, digital. There's digital effects. There's digital cameras. Pretty much anything digital is bad. If you're talking about horror films, I thought, even though it never really goes anywhere, I thought that was an interesting wrinkle where Breaker was worried about the cat because animals can be possessed by the demons as well too.
Yeah, it's a cool, you know, like, just shows you that nothing is, you can't trust anything, nothing is safe. Builds the tension, and then this scene is great. There's like a little bit of score, like very, very subtle. I know when you're when you're actually watching it, it's very subtle, just kind of, you know, throbbing kind of underneath this. And Billy Zane's performances, he's back to like the cool, collected. He's very charismatic in this moment here.
Yeah.
You know, you're beautiful. You are. He's got a very like throaty, like very like sultry kind of voice going on. This is a great like little seductive scene to show you, you know, just how much of an intimidating villain he is, because he can punch you through the head or seduce you.
Yeah. Like, pretty much this is the first time we see his true kind of MO as a demon. Yeah, he could kill you, but then you'll be dead, and then, you know, he doesn't really get much out of it. But if you're in a position where you have something he wants, or you can do something for him, he basically gets in your head, and he tries to, you know, play to your innermost, I guess, desires or weaknesses or whatever, and, you know,
sorry to interrupt you, but just where the little touches of, you know, he's outside moving his hand and he's wiping the tear away, and you could see he ends up smoothing her lips a little bit. Like, that's a great little touch, great little effect right there.
It is great, and it works in an emotional way that you actually feel bad for this prostitute character who up until this point was never, you know, was not that, you know, like, I think that one scene built so much sympathy for her, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like you're saying, this is where you see that, yeah, he's gonna worm his way inside your head to turn you.
Yeah, and I think that's a great kind of, you know. And there's a lot of movies or horror movies that have villains that, like, they have some magic power that gives you exactly what you want. But as it goes on, you know, we see there's some people he's able to play and some he can't, you know. You know, you still kind of have a choice in it, and it all kind of depends on how weak your soul is as a person, you know.
Yeah.
And then
there's all this great little. This movie was not well received when it came out.
Well, not only that, and I think kind of the tales, the Crypt, and the Crypt Keeper, and all his gory bullshit where he hacks off his own hand and laughs maniacally. Like, I think there's a lot of subtlety in this movie. If this would have just been released as Demon Knight, it maybe would have been seen differently as like kind of a somewhat, but once you put that Tales from the Crypt name on it, I think a lot of people were like, okay, this is, beer guzzling, kind of bottom of the barrel, whatever, and there actually was a lot more thought into it, both from the screenwriters and from the director, I think.
The one thing they did, and now it's, we've talked about how the script kind of passed several hands, and it wasn't necessarily like, it wasn't an EC Comics type of thing. I think that was smart. Those EC Comics stories work for little, half-hour, quick, just to do a quick little story. But turning a thing where the whole point is just a twist that, like, a zombie a person becomes a zombie and comes back to life doesn't work for longer than that.
Yeah.
That's why, like, Creep Show is, like, all EC comic stuff. And, I mean, it's great, but it's, 5 stories in a 2-hour movie,
Right.
Like, those kinds of stories, they don't work in an hour and a half feature-length film. And switching it up, and the effects, I love these effects here on the turning her ripping her face open or whatever, and the tongue comes out. But, yeah, it wouldn't have worked if it was just one of those, like, typical kind of Tales from the Crypt stories.
Yeah. And here we have CCH Pounder. She gets her arm ripped off. She looks kind of like a bigger, heavier set woman in this movie, which she actually wasn't at the time. They actually kind of fat suited her up, so when her arm got ripped off, she would kind of have a space to hide her real arm. And I think that was actually kind of brilliant. And also, too, she really wasn't that old. I think she was in her early 40s, but the character's supposed to be like in her 50s or so. So, kind of that and her hair and stuff, they kind of, it worked, gave a good illusion of kind of an older woman, tough older woman. I really like her character as it goes along here, and she kind of turns out to be one of the heroes, and
one of the big badasses, really.
Yeah, big time badass. And here we have the group. Now we see the demons aren't just outside. People can get possessed inside and turn on us, and this is kind of where we start getting our Reservoir Dogs moments here, mostly between Thomas Hayden Church and Bill Sadler here. And I gotta say, I really like Thomas Hayden Church, and it's funny because a lot of the stuff I think he's probably most famous for. It's just one of those cases where, like, that stuff is, not that there's anything wrong with it, but I don't think it's really his best work. You know what I mean? Like, I think he shows more range and whatever on this than he did in 10 years on Wings or whatever he was on.
Or, like, Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, and you know what? And, I liked him a lot from this movie. I liked him a lot from the movie Sideways, and to kind of see him in Spider-Man 3, and that's a whole whatever can of worms. I won't dare go into whose fault that was, but yeah, that was a disappointment. Because I like Spider-Man. I like the characters. I like Sandman actually a lot too as a character. And I was like, I was on board. Thomas Hayden Church as Sandman. I dig that, and then to kind of see it go nowhere in the film, But yeah, we're starting to see Geraldine, Jada Pinkett, starting to see a little bit more that she has a backbone and a spine. Because they actually, early on, they revealed that she's kind of getting taken advantage of, being slaved away as a maid in this nasty motel because she has a criminal record. But
what I love about these early flashbacks is the implication early on that William Sadler's character was around witnessing these events.
Right.
You end up realizing, later throughout the course of the movie that he's not the first Demon Knight. But then it kind of takes on another layer of like, oh, he, those memories are passed on.
Exactly. It's like shared consciousness type deal.
Oh, it makes Uncle Willie go first.
Oh, what a Thomas Hayden sure to make up poor Uncle Willie. Dick Miller, and I had to do a little bit of math, but around the time they were filming this, old Dick Miller was about 66 years old. Pretty impressive to be doing a genre film like this where, you know, he has to do some quite physical stuff a little bit later here. I won't, you know, not that we have to worry about spoilers because anybody listening to this has seen the movie, but you know what I'm talking about. Like, I have to say I was pretty impressed as a 66-year-old man. Dick Miller has, he has like an old man Caesar cut in this movie. and it looked like it's like almost kind of gently bleached blonde a little bit. It's really strange. I prefer more the pompadoured Dick Miller from earlier films, but you know, any Dick Miller is good Dick Miller.
Oh yeah, this is when I first saw this movie. I think he was the only actor that I knew. You know, I didn't really get into like film and, you know, really paying attention to stuff until like probably college. Before that, I was just a casual fan of movies, and I just remember seeing this movie, you know, for the first time and going, "Hey, it's the guy from Gremlins."
Yeah, Mr. Futterman. And yeah, like when I saw this, I knew Sadler from Die Hard 2. Like that's how I recognized him, and also Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, but more from Die Hard 2. And I know I had seen, because I saw it when it came out, I had seen Menace to Society, and I knew Jada Pinkett was from that movie because the trailer for this movie like tells you what everybody's from and shit. But but she was pretty much still an unknown to me because like I don't know, like the character she plays in this and even her physical look in this is like a complete 180 than what she was like in Menace to Society. But old CCH Pounder was no genre newbie though. She was in what is it, Psycho 3, I think. Yeah, I think Psycho 3.
Underrated.
Yeah.
Sequels, the Psycho sequels. Although I don't see her credited in it. I see her in RoboCop 3.
Really? Yeah, she was. Actually, maybe it's Psycho 4 the beginning.
John.
Because she plays the radio host that like Norman calls into, I believe. I think that is Psycho 4 the beginning. The CCH Pounder's in. But
unfortunately, I don't know Bill Sadler from Buffalo. He's from Buffalo.
Well, to be fair, he probably left Buffalo by the time you were in Buffalo. So.
He's 10 years my dad's senior. So yeah, he was active. He started his career in the early 80s, so that would be before I was born. But no, he's Buffalo's own. And I think I first found that out when I was looking through the cast of The Mist, and I was like, "Oh, he's that guy from The Shawshank Redemption." And I clicked on his thing to make sure that he's the guy from The Shawshank Redemption. I go, "Oh, crap, he's from my hometown, Buffalo." And now I'm looking at his bio further. One of the rare Hollywood actors, or actor of any kind, I guess. He has been married since 1977 to the same person.
That's insane. I have to admit, and I don't really know where I got this or whatever. Maybe it was from watching Bill Sadler do some naked Tai Chi at the beginning of Die Hard 2, or I don't know what, but for some reason, or maybe it was actually from The Shawshank Redemption. I don't know why, but I was always under the impression that Bill Sadler was a homosexual gentleman. And I was actually surprised to find out, just for whatever reason, that was not the case. So,
his son is my age.
Interesting. I mean, isn't it hard? I mean, not that he was a spring chicken back when he did these movies in the 90s, but like when I was looking at his Wikipedia the other night, it's hard to believe that like Bill Sadler And he's still in tons of stuff now, but it's hard to believe Bill Sandler's like basically pushing 70 at this point, you know?
I know.
I mean, you know, makes me feel even older that these people that I watched in movies as the quote unquote adults of my generation, like, are really, like, you know, much older or whatnot.
He has aged very well. I mean, this movie's 95, and the last one that I really remember seeing him in was Iron Man 3, and he looks, I mean, older, but like the same.
I mean, he looks like he gained 15 to 20 pounds, maybe, and like that's it. His hair is exactly the same hair, color, everything. His face is like not that aged that much. Here we go with Stryker. Now we find out the origin of Stryker himself and when he got passed on. Like, even though it's like literally just that one shot of the demon like getting his eyes shut out, like I really like this War One flashback for some reason. Like, I could have done with this the sequence being like maybe like 10 minutes long, and I would have been cool with it.
I could have done with this as a movie.
Yeah.
William Sadler and some other guy locked in a bunker in World War I fighting demons.
Well, wouldn't it be crazy if, like, since they basically had the set there, like, they could have just, like, knocked this out for, like, $1 million movie. Done, like, a 75-minute for HBO Demon Knight prequel. I think it could have worked.
I'd have watched it.
Yeah. But, yeah...
So is the implication that the guy who just gave it to him was the first one?
See, that's what I always, like, in my head pieced together. But when I was watching this the other night, I was looking closely at, like, the guy who got Jesus' blood off the cross, and it's not the same guy. I'm 99.9% sure it's not the same guy. So I think the guy that Sadler got it from was maybe the second. I mean, who really knows? But maybe the second guy, because, you know, when this night of having 7 souls and all this to have the demons take back to Earth, like, Sadler later tells Geraldine that, you know, you might wait a lifetime, you might wait several lifetimes for the night to come when you have to fight or whatever, you know, and the little stars gimmick on your hand gets it. But yeah, I think Sadler's at least the third guy in the line who's done this.
I like this scene where he's you know, kind of explaining to them. He's going, it all has to. There have to be 7 people that the demons kill. There's 7 stars. There's 7 keys, and they're like, dude, this is bullshit. And he's like, and he just like looks at them, and this is. I love when movies do this in some way. And he goes, I didn't make these rules up, you know, like, like. Anytime a movie says like, I didn't make this up, like this is the reality of the situation we're in, or like, you know, and so like, that can't be possible, and they're like, well, look behind you, it clearly is possible. Like, yeah, just don't have everyone be all skeptical. Have someone say, this is what's happening, and people go, no, that's not possible, and you go, well, look around you, it is, you know, like.
I mean, I would. All you would have done is show me one of those demons, and I would have been convinced, very convinced. I would have believed anything. But
so yeah, he's telling us that the keys basically can unlock the darkness.
Yeah,
they can plunge the earth back into the chaos from before God created light.
Yeah, it's basically the demon's way of retaking the earth. And I gotta say, Sadler did an amazing job acting-wise with selling that bit of, like, basically just exposition, but selling it in a way where he's, like, emotionally, you know, exhausted and exasperated and just really, you know, he doesn't give a shit if they believe him or not, really, but he's just fucking be like, you're in this situation, your lives are on the line, you need to know this type of thing. And you know what's funny too is this movie feels in a good way very long and very full and epic. But I mean, the thing about it is, it's like a 92-minute movie. But when you take credits out of the way, and you take the Crypt Keepers little segments out of the way, this is basically, excuse me, this is basically an 85-minute movie. And it feels very full, and it's, even though there's like a lot of scenes like this where they're talking and they're preparing for the next onslaught or attack or whatever, it's weird. It's nicely paced, but at the same time, it's pretty action packed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's got enough breather moments like this to let it sink in and to give you some of the backstory and exposition. And yeah, 90 minutes, man. You don't see 90-minute movies anymore.
No, you don't. Like you said,
you don't
the
see
economy.
You definitely don't see a 90-minute movie that has this kind of mythology and backstory of, going back to the beginning of time. I mean, this would be if this movie was made today, you'd have like at least 10-minute detour into like the earth in darkness and demons climbing all over everything, and
we would need a shot of like a field of CGI demons. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah, here we get Jada's moment, Geraldine's moment of seduction, and this is where we kind of find out that, basically, he looks into you as a person, and he sees what you want out of life, and he offers it to you. But at the same time, it's not like being hypnotized. You still have to kind of actively choose. Like, even though they don't really know what they're getting themselves into, if they say yes, you basically kind of have to sell your soul to this guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I always thought this was a cool, face on there, and the hands all touching it, and then you're going to see the blood coming into it. This is a creepy little moment.
Yeah, and when the whole thing, it's what we're talking about is it's basically like a big kind of silk screen portrait of Jada Pinkett's face, and you see these hands behind it, and then it's like there's blood, but it's almost like blood, like the blood is the tears coming out of like her eyes, and then the sheet drops, and we see an image of all the demons basically tearing apart and eating Breaker.
And then Billy Zane just pops in, and he's like affable. Oh, horrible, isn't it?
Yeah. And he tries to convince her that all her dreams of seeing the world, because obviously she's had some troubles with the law. I'm assuming she's probably on probation, and that's why she's getting slaved out and can't say too much about it in this motel. He's offering her the world.
But yeah, well, so one thing I wanted to mention while William Sadler was telling his story, he said he's basically at least the third one, because he said it was the blood of Jesus, and then the blood of some thief named Sirac.
Yeah.
He said most of what's in here now belonged to a soldier whose last name was like Dickerson or Dickinson. In World War I. So yeah, he's at least the third. The guy who gives him the key is not the same as the guy who gets it in the first place.
And it's probably even more than that, but that's just from the storytelling for sure, we know he's at least the third one.
You get the feeling it's probably every roughly 100 years or so.
Yeah.
That. I'm kind of glad they didn't do that. There's enough like, oh, it has to be 7 people, 7 keys, 7 whatever. They didn't go like, oh, it has to be 77 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's some movies, there's a lot of movies now, and I always appreciate a good mythology, especially in a supernatural story. But there's a lot of movies now that really go overboard and try to like completely oversell it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I gotta say too, for a movie where they're kind of trapped in this, and it is a large location. It's not like it's not like they're in a 2-bedroom house or anything. But for this being a kind of a claustrophobic movie where I don't know, like the different rooms they go into and the things they try to escape and whatever stuff they do. Like, I don't know, like it never feels like a boring one location type film. Like you never really have that in your mind when you watch it.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you're really paying attention, you can notice like, oh, it's clearly a low budget. There's only so many places, but yeah, they switch it up to upstairs, downstairs, mine shaft, attic. Like, there's enough of this set to explore it.
Yeah, and here we have Uncle Willie's seduction.
This was my favorite part when I first saw the movie. Hi, Uncle Willie.
Yeah, he basically walks into a tiki bar full of like probably roughly 20 like young women all topless. And kind of interesting fact, because you really can't tell it's her because her looks change over the year, but the one black girl in the group, she's actually Tracy Bingham, who would later go on Baywatch, and this is obviously before her enhancements or whatnot, so she doesn't quite look the same, but I always found that interesting that this is kind of how she got her start. And here we have Billy Zane going full Jim Carrey once again, and he's offering Willie like a bottle, you offer him a drink, and he even says like, "Hey, Uncle Willie, you want a long hard one or whatever?" Like it's very bizarre.
Yeah, and, this one's called a long hard one.
Yeah, suck it down. And like, I mean, when you watch the movie with the sound and the score and all that, it starts out like really frat party-ish, when he walks in and all the naked women, oh, Uncle Willie, but as he gets, and Zane's pouring drink after drink here, like the music kind of comes down and it gets serious, and like, I don't know, I thought it was kind of cool that, I don't know, like they could have easily cut the scene like as soon as he accepted the drink and you go, okay, he sold his soul. But like I kind of like it that they kind of bring that moment of sadness to, the Uncle Willie character and his drinking, you know what I mean?
Here's your payoff.
Yeah, okay. The stolen mail, yeah. The mailman, they find the piles of stolen mail, and then they find like a chest with like a bunch of automatic weapons. And I gotta say that the automatic weapons and stuff are kind of a tease because like you're like, oh shit, yeah, they're gonna gear up and shoot the shit out of the demons, but he actually has no ammunition for these Uzis and shit that he has. But he does have like a wearable vest that he made of hand grenades, and basically there's a bar on it, so if you were to pull the bar, all the hand grenades would pop off and blow up.
Yeah, it's so for no reason they're like, he was reading our mail.
Yeah. It was very, very strange, kind of sideways payoff. Here we have Uncle Willie. He's attacking Breaker, and at the same time, now you get Billy Zane trying to lure in CCH Pounder by giving her arm back. That's her great fantasy, or what he thinks. Meanwhile, she doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
Great piece of comedy there, where she holds up her arm stump, and he says, "What's that?" That's me holding up my middle finger. You just can't see it. But yeah, and this is kind of like the moment in zombie movies where people can't shoot their friend or their mother or whatever who's turned into a zombie. This is where Geraldine has to finally kind of, man up or whatever. And she really kind of doesn't rise to the occasion, but,
The one thing they did, though, at least to kind of put a little bit of a twist on it, is they initially showed a couple flashes of her to, like, when she's talking to Billy Zane, he says, "Just give me what I want and I'll leave you alone." So it's almost like she's less torn about should I kill my friend and more torn of like, who do I really want to like throw in with? Like, do I want she's kind of like, do I want to fight demons or do I want to just give in?
Yeah, because I mean this whole thing, this whole night, it seems like a pretty lost cause, and I think every character has to kind of go in terms of what's my best chance of survival, and as we'll see soon, Billy Zane's word is not very good.
Here's probably the movie's, I would say, maybe just the worst effect in terms of like that
bad.
Does not look like Dick Miller's head.
No,
at all.
Well, there's kind of a thing when the eyes first open, it looks like his head, like some kind of optical effect, and then obviously they're going to get into the gag now where they have to throw the head around, so then they go to the whatever plastic head, and you're right, it doesn't look like Dick Miller.
It doesn't even look like they took a cast of his head.
It really, honestly, it really did. What's strange about it doesn't even really look like how Dick Miller looked with the demon makeup on that much. It just looks like a bad, like, Dick Miller dummy head.
Like they could have made him up more so that they could have made a more convincing prosthetic or whatever.
Because like Cordelia and the kid, when they turn into demons, they kind of like their jaws separate and they become more unhuman looking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They could have done that with Dick Miller, but I don't know. That's a silly moment. Billy Zane is making the deal with Thomas Hayden Church, and he offers him a sponge to wipe the barrier seal away. And it's literally, I don't know how they did it, or how he, Billy Zane said he improv that, but I like how he got it to like unroll like a cartoon tongue out of his mouth. It was really weird.
Yeah, it's great. And I could see that, like, how that and that kind of stuff, like, the comedy itself being like so campy and goofy probably threw a lot of people off, but it's funny.
But I think they did a great job, because I mean, I don't hate horror comedies the way a lot of people do, but I don't really pop for them either. But I think in this movie with the humor, and it actually is funny humor for the most part, like I think they picked their spots very well. When you need it kind of a break from the tension and the action and just momentarily a quick. So here we have Thomas Hayden Church. He hands over the key to Billy Zane, but Billy Zane just immediately sicks the demons on him to rip him apart.
There's the tails you could see a good shot of.
This is the scene where you really see the tails good.
You do get a good look at the stilt legs and
yeah. And one of them, I haven't listened to it yet, but he does the commentary, I know, on the Blu-ray. But one of the kind of stunt guys and guys who wore one of the demon suits actually portrayed Dr. Satan in Rob Zombie's House of 1,000 Corpses.
Now that you bring that up, you could see that, right? Like,
yeah,
definitely have a similar physique. So here it's all starting to really fall apart. Yeah. They're falling to their last. Yeah, that is the like you mentioned, is like, it is a fairly big place, but they make it like more and more claustrophobic over time. Like starts off and they basically have the run of the house almost. You're like, oh, that's not so bad. And then they're in the mines, and the mines get taken away. And then some stuff happens, and now they can't be downstairs anymore. They're stuck upstairs. And now even more stuff has happened, and they're stuck like up in the attic for the duration of what's about to happen here.
Yeah, they're basically losing ground the whole time. I like this part. We don't see a lot of it, but we get the implication that the little boy, he actually, instead of us seeing a moment of Billy Zane tempting him, because Billy Zane actually turned his parents into demons. They were the ones who attacked in the mines. But we actually see him start, he's looking at a comic book, and we see the comic book kind of coming to life, and we kind of gather. I thought that was kind of like a cool, interesting touch. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Here's like Sadler's kind of maybe final test of Geraldine. Puts the blood on her to see what she does with it.
And it's kind of funny too, because obviously he needs to pick a successor or whatever. His time is coming to an end. But like, you never, I don't know, like as the movie goes on, you never like really focus on that he's like who he's going to pick or whatever. it kind of just happens in a natural, organic way, you know.
Yeah.
And this is great, where the kid turns into a demon.
I love this with the comic book, like.
Yeah, the comic book is mirroring, like, the you know, the drawings in the comic book are mirroring what's going on in the scene. It's very cool.
This is some great, you know, prosthetic, practical effects work here. The tongue sliding into the chest, and the kid, the demon with his mouth all open and stuff. It's cool. This is maybe my favorite creature effect in the movie.
Yeah, it's cool. And then Geraldine kicks him through the window, so he blows up. But like the look of that kind of reminds me a lot of the Dr. Tongue zombie from the beginning of Day of the Dead, with the missing jaw and the long protruding tongue or whatever. And yeah, it's just the nature of the storyline or whatever. But like when you kind of watch this, like I feel like even more than most heroes or whatever in these type of films, like I feel like you kind of feel, you know, the sadness of Breaker's death a little bit more, because it really would be perfect if him and Geraldine could go around together. You know what I mean? And almost have like a phantasm type deal going on with them fighting Billy Zane, you know, the way, you know, Reggie and Mike fought the tall man. But, you know, unfortunately, I guess there kind of can only be one, because, you know, it always usually happens that, you know, they eventually get killed or whatever, and they have to pass it on.
Yeah. And he's passing on the memory of Jesus.
The Jesus. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. Like, I think it would kind of be cool if they could have, you know, and I'm sure obviously 100% was a budget thing, but it would have been cool if they could have just kind of put a couple weird images in there from, like, other people that we really didn't see, you know what I mean? Like, their experiences or whatnot.
I'm sure that's a budget thing. Yeah, for sure.
But now Geraldine has the stars tattooed on the palm of her hand. It's just really weird because, you know, this premise and even like the monsters and stuff, like it has a very, you know, B-movie drive-in, almost like a grind, you know, before Grindhouse was fashionable again, but like it has that movie type of feel. But like we've been pointing out all along, like the details and stuff of this movie and the way the story's told and just how really well done it is, even for a lower budget movie, like that's why I think this movie is a lot better than it really has any right to be, you know.
Oh yeah, that's the best kind of B movie. Yeah. You know, is the B movie that it knows it's a B movie, and it knows it's, you know, not winning awards or anything like that. It's not going to be a huge blockbuster, but it doesn't use that as an excuse to shy away from telling its story and utilizing details and it makes it feel like a real movie. And then so it's got the fun camp of a B movie, but it also works as like a movie, like a real movie.
Yeah, it does. There's you know. And, I mean, if you really, like, look at the cast and you look at, you know, where a lot of
that little moment right there, just to interrupt you, where, you know, she reverently closes his eyes, and then Billy Zane comes up and irreverently opens his eyes now that he's dead. It's just a little character beat, like just a quick couple second thing, but it just, it's a cool detail.
And, yeah, and I mean, you know, and I guess that's what you have to do when you have a smaller budget, but like just really picking a well kind of curated veteran, you know, but interesting cast. Whereas opposed to, like, I feel like if this movie were made now, just half the people would be kind of green and experienced actors from TV shows and whatnot. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think picking the cast they did led to little moments like that, like just, you know, like what Billy Zane did and whatnot. And, like, I think the thing that's really interesting about the ending of this movie is I feel like 99.9% of these kinds of movies, like, basically during the final battle, Breaker would, you know, get mortally wounded and then be like, "Oh, we won," and then he reveals, "Oh, I got wounded, and now it's my time," and like that would be the end of the movie. Whereas this movie, interesting enough, he kind of dies early enough to where instead of just seeing it that it's just passed to Geraldine and then that's the end of the movie, like we actually see that okay, not only has it been passed to her, but it's actually up to her to completely defeat Billy Zane. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I thought that was a great.
It's not over yet by any means. Like,
yeah, like there's still the ending of the movie, and I thought that was a great kind of interesting thing how she hides and she jumps out. And she's actually covered in the blood, and obviously if the blood touches Billy Zane, it hurts him and whatnot. I thought that was like a really cool kind of, because there's, I mean, not that a gun would do much to Billy Zane anyway, but like, because he explains, you can, they poke out one of his eyes earlier and it just grows back or whatever, because that only works on the lower level demons or whatnot.
I actually think that explanation is coming up.
Where she jams him. Yeah, she jams either the key or something in his eye, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's coming up soon because she jams it in his eye through the sunglasses and he's like, damn, I like those.
Yeah, his sunglasses he's been wearing. And, she, like, the way he gets around her being covered in the blood is he grabs a shower curtain and grabs her with it and throws her in this bathtub and washes her off. And I gotta say, like, yeah, there it is. She's jammed with the key. But I gotta say, it's kind of hilarious how after she gets like rinsed off here, her completely white cotton panties and bra that were completely bloodstained, they go back to being completely white once there's a little bit of water. Like even the back of her that like the water really didn't even spray onto,
Yeah, it's efficient storytelling and he's an efficient washer.
Yeah. And I mean, we've been blowing this movie all night, so I mean, let's not stop now. But let's talk about the 2015, the 2016, the 2017 bent on a movie like this. Whereas another area I think this movie doesn't get credit for is, there's a lot about diversity in films now, and women and whatever, and are they strong enough in the films? Are they subservient to men? Whatever. And I gotta say, for the whole kind of modern movement of we need strong women, we need diversity or whatever, like, and obviously Ernest Dickerson is black director himself, whatnot, but like, so obviously he was probably more in tune to the issue in 1995 than other directors would have been, but I think he did a great CCH Pounder, Jada Pinkett, and then the way Geraldine, actually really both the black women in this movie, they're both really strong in their own ways and unique ways, and not really in a fake artificial way. But like people who criticize movies and especially like horror movies, like I don't think they really could bitch about this movie whatsoever, because like the women are, other than Breaker, the two biggest badasses in the movie are two black women basically.
Yeah, and the hero is a black woman.
Exactly. Now, I have to say, as much as I love Demon Knight, and I've watched it a million times over the years, this is always the one part I never really dug, the peeing the fire or whatever. It seemed like a little,
like,
I don't know,
his penis or something.
Yeah, like I can't tell if he's supposed to be peeing the fire or if the tentacle of fire is supposed to be his dick or what. But it's just like a little like whatever.
Yeah, that and we talked over it, but the moment earlier where he's dragging her body down the steps and it's like that really bad doll or dummy or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, clearly,
I love this. He can't say the word love.
Yeah.
You. That's again. That's just like details, like, and it's the details that put this movie over the top. A little implausible here on the finale with her holding that in her mouth the whole time
for that long, yeah, without swallowing it. I mean, I guess you would be extra motivated not to swallow the blood, the partial blood of Jesus, but still, because he basically dumped out all the blood, and then there was like a little bit left, and she got it in her mouth. She poured it in her mouth to spit on him. And yeah, just that little bit in the face pretty much caused and it's a pretty cool effect the way he melts down. He kind of like foams up and melts down and then blows up, and he's kind of this giant demon. I don't know what you call it, more like a bat demon.
And then that's a cool little miniature. The like whole doors and windows of the church blowing out is a cool little miniature. And I mean, it's an obvious miniature, but it's just fun to see.
It works for what it is and the feel that this movie has. So yeah, unfortunately, I think probably Jada marrying Will Smith and also becoming super successful in her own right meant that we would never, no matter what, get a Demon Knight 2 starring her. But I totally would have been down for it. I think she's pretty badass. I think it would have been cool. I think it'd be really cool if they made it now somehow, just to see her older and whatnot.
Yeah, that, like just a complete almost retelling or whatever. Her just being old, and it'd be her time to be up.
Yeah.
But no, it's not happening.
And even though it's kind of like a little hand-holding thing, I actually do like that they went back and they showed a quick scene of her refilling the blood with Stryker's, the rest of Stryker's blood. Because if not, then you kind of be like, well, they dumped it all out. How, it just wouldn't. I mean, obviously you would have to think like, oh, well, she could go, but no, they just showed her refilling it. And I like this ending when she gets on the bus and she seals the door of the bus. And the bus at the next bus stop, there's a demon guy trying to get on, and obviously he can't.
Yeah. Nah, man.
I'll wait for the next one. And I like it too because I like the kind of final shot of the. I mean, it's not the final shot of the movie because we got to go back to the Crypt Keeper, but I like this shot where he lets the bus go, but then he starts slowly walking behind the bus. I think it's kind of a cool kind of. Almost Terminator-esque, like, yeah, I'll catch up with you eventually. You know what I mean?
And he's whistling the theme
from Tales from the Crypt. Yeah. So yeah, I was all about this movie. It just came out the right time. This movie was in my top 10 of all movies for like probably a good 10 years or whatever, and I eventually kind of grew whatever. Past that, but I still would really put this might even be in my top 25 of movies. I mean, I love this movie so much and I have such fond memories. I actually bought a Demon Knight t-shirt from Suncoast, whatever it was, Suncoast Motion Picture Store. It was really cool. It was a black t-shirt on the front. It had like on the chest, small kind of on one side, it had the Tales from the Crypt presents Demon Knight. And then, like on the back, it just the full back of the t-shirt was a close-up of one of the demon heads. And I think the eyes were like glow in the dark green. But it was one of the coolest t-shirts, and I wore it till it fucking, was tatters, of course. But, and I've always wanted to try to find another one on eBay or whatever, just to put in the closet. I never have seen another one. But yeah, so the movie's over, so now we, go to our outro, this being Tales of the Crypt, of, the Crypt Keeper, and the movie within the movie, or I don't even really know how you would phrase it. He's the director of the movie, I guess, and he's going to the premiere, I think it's the Fox Westwood, where they have a lot of premieres of the movie. He gets out of the limo, and we see him from behind. He seems to be a small gentleman in a Crypt Keeper wig, isn't he? And then because this is a celebration of the macabre of the Crypt Keeper, they have a guillotine waiting for him, and they cut his head off, and he says he has final cuts. I don't know. I mean, like, I love that it's part of Tales from the Crypt because I think but it's like. I don't know, like the movie's so good just to end it on I don't really have such a problem with the Crypt Keeper intro, as silly as that is, but I don't know, after you watch this good movie to see him talk about having final cut. Well, I don't know. What's your take on that, Jelly?
Yeah, it's a little weird. You know, you expect you almost expect it to be a more traditional, Crypt Keeper wraparound where he's just kind of back in his crypt. Oh, how'd you like that one, kiddies? But
instead of a Billy Barty stunt double bopping down a red carpet. What a horrible wig.
but I mean it's that taste of
it is what it is. Yeah.
Goofy and funny, and I mean, they tried to do. I'll give them the credit for trying to do at least something to acknowledge that like this was the movie instead of the show. Like so people couldn't just come back and say, oh, all you're doing is seeing a 90-minute version of what you see for 30 minutes on HBO.
Which it wasn't at all. It was very, expanded in all the right ways, I think.
And then there were plans for a trilogy, and none of them initially included the follow-up film. So there was going to be I can't remember the name of the one, but the other one was supposed to be Dead Easy and Body Count.
Yeah. Do you know? The after credit sequence coming up?
Yeah, he teases Dead Easy.
Dead Easy, yeah. And I was reading.
I don't know anything about those movies. Do you?
I wish I had it. I wish I had it pulled up here, but I actually found it like real late last night, right before I fell asleep. Yeah. Dead Easy was about basically a family where I think it sounded a lot in a way, like in all honesty, but like it sounded a lot like Pet Sematary 2. It was about basically like a family, like a dad and a son who I think after the mother's death or something like that, or for some tragedy, they moved to New Orleans, and it's a traditional New Orleans voodoo, zombie. And like I even found one guy who like was trying to spread some half-assed rumor, which I do not believe like whatsoever. But this guy was trying to say that they actually filmed the entire movie and that Joel Silver actually shelved it because he thought like the way they portrayed like, all the black people in New Orleans and the voodoo and that it was just like it kind of came off as really racist. So this guy was claiming, and he was going all over this message board claiming that they actually shot the movie, but then once Joel Silver saw how like, potentially racist it could be perceived by the public, he shelved it and just and like there's no evidence anywhere that like I don't think they did. Like I think just like a lot of, because even the background of this movie, there was other ones, and the writers of this claim that they were also trying to get the rights to Tarantino's Dusk Till Dawn to do that as one of the Crypt movies, and which I found interesting and whatever, but it kind of shows that they went with Bordello Blood instead. But I don't know. They claim Tarantino wanted like millions of dollars or something for the script, but I don't know. But yeah, and Body Count was, I kind of forget what that said, but that had a more generic synopsis that I read. But it had something to do with some kind of ghoulish zombie bullshit. But I mean, neither one of them, I mean, granted, I'm just going from like one line synopsis that I read, but like neither one sounded really like it was going to have the depth and story that Demon Knight really did.
Yeah, and that's the only thing about this movie is I think it had that grand kind of epic feel to it that like they were doomed on any sequels.
Yeah.
Because you knew they weren't going to do like end of the world not post-apocalyptic, but like this was like the fate of the universe hanging in the balance on this. And here's our still here kitties.
Didn't get enough a dose of murder and mayhem? Well, come see Dead Easy. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's at a time when this kind of thing was not common.
Yeah, and there technically was a third Tales from the Crypt movie direct-to-video that was kind of just like whatever. I actually rented it one time and watched it. It was just an independent movie that they picked up, and like they shot some Crypt Keeper sequences around. But the Crypt Keeper sequences, oh my god, they were so piss poor. Did you ever see that one, Jelly?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, it was really bad. It was like it took place on like an island. It might have been some voodoo shit too. Now that I think about it, but it took place on this island, and like these people were having an affair, and some shit happened. So like, it kind of fit the theme, but the Crypt Keeper segments were god awful. Like the puppet, it wasn't even like the quality that you really are accustomed to from the movie or show. You know, I don't know. It was really bad. It was like, you know. But where are you at on the one that they did make, Bordello of Blood, which pretty much ended the franchise?
Yeah, I was just about to ask you. I think it's overly maligned.
I love it. I
think
love
it's
it.
fun. Like, yeah. I don't like it as much as this, and I think
better.
I think at the time when I first saw it, I really didn't like it just because I was expecting something up to this movie standards. But no, I like it.
It's fun for what it is, and it's one of those movies that has a lot of great practical effects, but it also kind of has very 1996-esque digital effects as well, with some, I don't know, like pretty much when the vampire ladies catch on fire, I would say, or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like it a lot. I mean, it's like from that time period, a lot of my favorite movies were like, Demon Knight and From Dusk Till Dawn, and I wouldn't put Bordello of Blood there, but I would put Bordello of Blood like on a second tier of my favorite horror movies, or just movies in general from that time.
Yeah. Where do you fall on the 70s Tales from the Crypt movie?
I haven't seen it in a long, long time. And I've seen, most of the times I've seen it, I've watched parts of it, because it off and on, it seems like every few years on cable, it pops up and plays a lot, and then it goes away. But I kind of like it from what I remember. Like, I actually, especially like the, it does seem like more legit old school Tales from the Crypt to me, and I really like, I don't know, I really like that segment that had like the evil Santa guy in it.
Yeah, I think that's like the first time that was done.
Yeah, and he's really like a really like nasty kind of ghoul type guy too. So.
Yeah, I think it's the first time Killer Santa type of thing was done. That's cool. There's a segment from it that because it is the more like, I think if I were gonna do a Tales from the Crypt movie these days, just because you don't, well, I don't know, maybe because anthologies are a little more in vogue actually these days. I think I would frame it as an anthology. But yeah, that's the 1972 Tales from the Crypt is an anthology. The Crypt Keeper is not the one that we know at all. He's more of just a hooded figure. I think he turns out to be the devil at the end. I can't really remember. Yeah. Or he might be like Death or something like that. But anyways, it's an anthology. And the one that you're talking about with Santa is really good. And the other one that I think is really good is about this guy who he winds up basically being a jerk, and he's got this dog. And I can't remember exactly everything that happens, but they end up kidnapping him and stealing his dog, and there's like, he gets stuck in all these alleyways where he can't see where he's going, and if he makes a wrong turn, he ends up cutting himself on all these razor blades, and the dog is chasing him because they've been starving his dog for a week.
Sounds bizarre.
And it's a really cool, it's something that's stuck in my head for a long time, and that I saw when I was a kid, and I was never able to figure out where it came from because all I remember was that one part. I wound up just watching this movie, the Tales from the Crypt movie, on a lark a couple of years ago. I was like, oh my god, I finally found it. But yeah, getting back to Demon Knight, I love it. I've loved it since the first time I saw it when I was a kid. I think, like you said, it's got a good cast of good veterans that are confident and competent, and the director Ernest Dickerson just has the confidence to let them find the characters on their own and really make it their own performance, and it all comes together really well. And it's a shame.
Storm, yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame that it wasn't more well received, and it only seems to be maybe just recently starting to get its due now that it's a Scream Factory release.
Yeah, and I mean on the documentary, both Sadler and Billy Zane say a lot of people come up to them in the public and really talk about the film. And yeah, as far as merch out there, if anybody's a collector, besides that T-shirt that I had, there was and I still have it somewhere. I have to dig it up, but you might be able to find this on eBay. There was one of those like official movie magazines. You remember those from like the 90s and 80s, Jelli?
Yeah.
And there's an official one of that, and it kind of talks about the other, it has some nice interviews and stuff, and lots of pictures of the demons and shit. And I found a page talking about it, and I guess that one, in that magazine, they talk a lot about Dead Easy, which apparently I don't even know why they filmed like this at the movie and called it Dead Easy, because immediately after it seemed like they started calling it Fat Tuesday. But yeah, the plot of Fat Tuesday, aka Dead Easy, it says, trying to start over after the death of his wife, a psychiatrist moves with his son in New Orleans, but his dead father terrorizes them, drawing them into a bizarre voodoo ritual. And also, the synopsis for Tales from the Crypt body count. This is just more generic. It says, the plot, while compiling clips for a documentary about violent crimes, a nephew discovers his uncle's dubious past. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, I could definitely see the Dead Easy one, like, kind of fitting into, but the body count one almost sounded more like another script that they just found and we're going to kind of tailor to the Tales thing, you know what I mean? But who knows? We'll never see it.
Yeah. No, at this point, what M. Night Shyamalan's trying to bring back.
Yeah. I think the Tales from the Crypt reboot with M. Night is going to be on TBS, which means don't expect it to be like the HBO series, which featured a lot of nudity and
I've heard conflicting things about whether or not the Crypt Keeper is even going to be in it.
Yeah, I'm real cloudy on that too. Like, I don't know, like I've seen pictures of like M. Night with the Crypt Keeper, but I just think it's like a weird Photoshop job that like people are using to promote the clickbait articles. I don't know. Like I hope for the best. Like, and I don't even mind if they make it different from the '90s HBO series, but I don't know. Just on I would feel a lot different about it if it was probably going to be on, say, like AMC. But it kind of sounds like, I can't see TBS really bringing the hardcore shit, in all honesty, because TBS as a network primarily focuses not on comedies, but comedies that can be aimed at more of a family demographic, I think. So
yeah, they do. The TBS, aren't they like very funny? Like, isn't that their?
Yeah, like that. They're basically, they branded themselves, basically a sitcom network, and they have Conan O'Brien talk show. So yeah, very. I don't know.
Well, if you've never seen Demon Knight, and I don't know why you're listening to this, if you've never seen Demon Knight, but do it.
Do it now.
It's a great time, and especially like it's a great time. I think this is one of those kind of like really great, and they're hard to find these days. This is like one of those great like gateway movies, for like someone who's right on the cusp, 15 to 17, and maybe they're not supposed to see an R-rated movie by themselves or whatever. But if you're a parent, you know what your kid can handle. This is a great like gateway kind of horror movie because it's got that right mix of like action and funny and horror and stuff, that this I think is something that could get a kid into horror, because this is definitely a movie that I saw. I've always liked horror, but this is a movie that I saw when I was 14 or 15, and I loved it. So
yeah, I was the same boat. I was 17, and this was like, I was obsessed with this movie after I saw it. You know, I got the magazine, got the T-shirt, whatever. If there's more I could have bought and immersed myself, and then, you know, I had like a D or a VHS, you know, recorded off HBO or something that I watched for years, and then, you know, kind of forgot about it for a couple of years, and then when the DVD came out, probably in like the late 90s, early 2000s, I watched the shit out of that, and definitely probably going to run through this Blu-ray a couple times, listen to those commentaries now. So, I mean, I don't know, it's kind of shocking to me that, like, you know, I mean, I don't think of this as like a new movie from the past few years, but it still kind of shocks me that this movie is like 22 years old at this point. January of this year would have been its 22nd kind of anniversary of being released. So, I don't know. But it doesn't feel, that's the thing though, is that when you watch it, it doesn't feel like that old of a movie, you know?
no, I mean, it feels like something from the, you know, I guess that's it, is the 90s are 20 years ago at this point. You know?
We just got to deal with it.
Because it feels like something from the 90s just because it's not full of CGI, but yeah, the 90s are now 20 years ago.
Exactly. So, I mean, I really cannot highly recommend this. I hope we convinced you, if you're one of those people on the fence and just, you know, well, Tales from the Crypt, it's going to be kind of lowbrow, whatever. Like, no, it's pretty damn good. So, yeah. So, like, if you want lowbrow, they made that afterwards with Bordello and Blood. It's great for what it is, but yeah, if you need some good shit, go with Demon Knight. So, for sure, Jelli suggested this one to me, and I was all about it. This is one of the reasons, you know, this movie in particular, and this type of movie is one of the reasons why, you know, basically this show exists, you know. So yeah, thank you everybody so much for listening to us talk about Tales from the Crypt presents Demon Knight. I'm just thinking of the Crypt Keeper bouncing down the red carpet right now. But thanks a lot to you, Jelli, for not only suggesting the film but coming on board to really chop it up. And you know, we'll definitely be hearing your voice more often on this show, I believe. And you know, we'll do our best to dig up these gems. And thanks for listening, everybody, and keep loving the 90s movies.
Yep. Thanks for having me, and yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.